There's a patch of the North Atlantic Ocean, a loosely drawn triangle between Bermuda, Florida, and Puerto Rico, where the rules of reality seem to get a little fuzzy. It's a place where compasses can supposedly spin out of control, where the weather can turn on you in an instant, and where, according to legend, dozens of ships and aircraft have sailed or flown into oblivion, leaving nothing behind but questions. This is the Bermuda Triangle. For decades, the name itself has been a synonym for the unexplainable. Tales of ghost ships, alien abductions, and mysterious forces have tried to fill the void left by missing crews and vanished vessels. But behind the folklore are chillingly real stories of disappearance. Stories of routine trips that ended in total mystery, and of final radio calls that spoke of confusion before fading into an unnerving silence. Today, we're journeying into the heart of this enigma. We'll explore 5 of the most infamous disappearances in the world's most mysterious waters. We'll try to separate the haunting legends from the startling facts, and confront the unsettling truth that sometimes, reality is far stranger than any fiction. From a colossal naval ship that simply ceased to exist, to an entire squadron of bombers that flew off the map, these are the stories of those who were swallowed by the triangle. Section 1. Flight 19, The Lost Squadron. December 5, 1945. It's a bright, clear day at Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The seas are calm, a perfect day for a routine training flight. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, known as Flight 19, roar to life. Inside are 14 men, ready for a simple 3-hour exercise. The mission was textbook: fly east, run some bombing drills, turn north, and head home. They'd done it 100 times before. They took off at 2:10 p.m., 5 planes in perfect formation, and vanished into the blue. For about 90 minutes, everything was completely normal. Then, around 3:45 p.m., the control tower got a strange transmission. It was the flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, but his voice wasn't calm. It was anxious, confused. He reported both of his compasses were out. He had no idea which way he was going. "I don't know where we are," he radioed. "We must have gotten lost after that last turn." On the ground, operators were baffled. How could a veteran pilot and his whole squadron get lost on a clear day, so close to the Florida coast? Another instructor flying nearby overheard the frantic chatter. The pilots were flying blind, not because of weather, but because their own instruments had turned against them. As the afternoon stretched on, the radio calls from Flight 19 got more disoriented, the panic rising. "We can't find west," one voice said. "Everything is wrong, we can't be sure of any direction. Everything looks strange, even the ocean." Lieutenant Taylor made a critical, and ultimately fatal, mistake. He became convinced he was over the Florida Keys, hundreds of miles south of his actual position. He told his squadron to fly northeast, thinking he was leading them back to the mainland. Instead, he took them deeper and deeper into the vast, unforgiving Atlantic. The last confirmed radio transmission from Flight 19 came through at 6:20 p.m. By then, the sun was down, fuel was dangerously low, and the once calm sea was getting rough. The message was faint, broken by static. It sounded like the men were getting ready to ditch their planes in the ocean. And then, silence. But the story doesn't end there. In the frantic search effort that followed, a PBM Mariner seaplane with a 13-man crew was sent to find the lost squadron. The Mariner, a massive flying boat, lifted off into the night. It radioed a single, routine message shortly after takeoff, and was never heard from again. Minutes later, the crew of a nearby tanker, the SS Gaines Mills, saw a massive fireball light up the sky. They raced to the spot and found a patch of oil and gasoline floating on the water, but no wreckage and no survivors. The Mariner had vanished in a massive explosion. In the days that followed, one of the biggest air and sea searches in history was launched. Hundreds of ships and planes scoured over 250,000 square miles of ocean. They found nothing. No debris, no life rafts, not a single trace of the 5 bombers or the rescue plane. 27 men were gone. So, what happened? The disappearance of Flight 19 became the bedrock of the Bermuda Triangle legend. But the scientific explanation paints a picture of human error meeting a hostile environment. The official Navy report blamed Lieutenant Taylor for getting lost, and while his fatal navigational error was the main cause, other factors were at play. The Bermuda Triangle sits on an agonic line, one of the places on Earth where true north and magnetic north align, which can temporarily confuse a compass. For an already disoriented pilot, this could have been disastrous. As for the Mariner rescue plane, it was nicknamed the Flying Gas Tank. A single spark from a known fuel leak could have caused the catastrophic explosion the tanker crew saw. Even with logical explanations, the story of Flight 19 is chilling. For nearly 80 years, no confirmed wreckage has ever been found. The sea has kept its secrets. It was a perfect storm of bad luck and bad judgment that cemented the Bermuda Triangle in the public imagination. Section 2. USS Cyclops, the Vanishing Behemoth. Long before Flight 19, an even bigger mystery was born on the high seas. This is the story of the USS Cyclops, and it represents the largest loss of life on a U.S. Navy ship in a non-combat incident. It's 1918, and World War I is in full swing. The USS Cyclops wasn't a battleship, she was a giant. A 542-foot-long naval supply ship with one vital mission: fueling the Allied war effort. In February 1918, she took on a heavy cargo of 10,800 tons of manganese ore in Brazil. With 306 crew and passengers aboard, she set off for Baltimore. The voyage started normally, but then the ship made a strange, unscheduled stop in Barbados on March 3. The captain, George Worley, claimed one of the engines had a cracked cylinder. But later investigations found no record of this. Why did he lie? It's one of the story's many unsettling questions. On March 4, the Cyclops sailed from Barbados, heavy with its dense cargo, and was never seen again. There was no SOS. No distress call. No final, desperate message for help. The behemoth just vanished. When the ship failed to arrive in Baltimore on March 13, a massive search began. But the Atlantic gave up no clues. No wreckage, no oil slicks, no lifeboats. Nothing. It was as if a 19,000-ton ship and 306 souls had been wiped from the face of the earth. Because it was wartime, everyone first assumed a German U-boat was to blame. But after the war, German naval records were checked. They had no record of an attack on the Cyclops. They had no idea what happened to it either. This led to darker theories about the captain. Worley was known to be a harsh commander, and some crew even called him a drunk. More disturbingly, he was born in Germany. Could he have been a spy who sailed the ship into an enemy ambush? It's a tantalizing theory, but there's no evidence to back it up. Then there are theories that point to the ship and the sea itself. The Cyclops was carrying a cargo far denser than it was designed for. Manganese ore, if it gets wet, can turn into an unstable slurry. In rough seas, that massive weight could have suddenly shifted, causing the ship to capsize and sink almost instantly, too fast for an SOS. Another chilling possibility is a design flaw. The Cyclops had 3 sister ships. Decades later, during World War II, 2 of them, the Proteus and the Nereus, also vanished without a trace in the western Atlantic while carrying similar heavy ore cargoes. This haunting coincidence suggests the ships may have had a fatal weakness. Some engineers think the long hull could have simply snapped in two under the strain. But perhaps the most accepted theory combines these factors with the triangle's infamous weather. The region is known for producing sudden, monstrous rogue waves. A wave like that, hitting a heavily overloaded ship, could break its back and drag it under in minutes, explaining the sudden and silent disappearance. The loss of the USS Cyclops remains the Navy's greatest non-combat mystery, a silent testament to the raw power of the ocean. Section 3. Star Tiger and Star Ariel: The Tudor Tragedies. It wasn't just military craft going missing. In the late 1940s, 2 remarkably similar disappearances, just a year apart, added to the growing legend. These are the stories of the Star Tiger and the Star Ariel, 2 sister planes that flew into the mystery and never came back. Our first tragedy starts on January 30, 1948. The Star Tiger, an Avro Tudor IV passenger plane, was on its way from the Azores to Bermuda. On board were 31 people, including a famous World War II Air Marshal, Sir Arthur Coningham. The flight was already in trouble. Strong headwinds were forcing them to fly lower and faster than planned, burning through fuel. They were pushing the very edge of their range to reach Bermuda. Despite the rough go, radio calls with the Star Tiger were routine. Just after 3 a.m., the plane's radio operator confirmed their position. Everything seemed fine. That was their last message. The plane was scheduled to land at 5 a.m. It never did. A massive search turned up nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no sign of the 31 people on board. The official investigation was stumped. The final report concluded that, what happened in this case will never be known and the fate of Star Tiger must remain an unsolved mystery. It was a rare and unsettling admission of total defeat. Less than a year later, on January 17, 1949, the story repeated itself. The Star Ariel, another Avro Tudor IV from the same airline, took off from Bermuda, heading for Jamaica. The weather was perfect. On board were 20 people. An hour into the flight, the captain made a routine radio call. "I am over my route. Everything is okay." That was the last anyone ever heard from the Star Ariel. Just like its sister ship, it vanished without a distress call. And just like before, the massive search found nothing. Not a single trace of the plane or the 20 souls aboard was ever found. Two sister ships, same airline, vanishing in the same region under eerily similar circumstances of complete silence. The coincidences were impossible to ignore and became a cornerstone of the Bermuda Triangle legend. The scientific explanations, however, point to the plane itself. The Avro Tudor IV was known to have problems. Its engines could overheat, and its cabin heating system was unreliable, a big deal when flying at high altitudes. Both planes were also flying at the absolute limit of their fuel range. A tiny navigation error or a sudden mechanical failure could have been catastrophic, leaving them with no power to send a distress signal as they plunged into the ocean. Without flight data recorders, we can only guess. But the twin tragedies of the Star Tiger and Star Ariel are a haunting reminder that even on a clear day, a trip over the triangle can be one way. Section 4. HMS Atalanta, the ghost frigate of 1880. The Bermuda Triangle's reputation isn't new. It goes way back, long before airplanes were even a thing. One of the earliest and most haunting cases is that of HMS Atalanta, a British Royal Navy frigate that sailed out of Bermuda in 1880 and straight into legend. The HMS Atalanta was a beautiful training ship with a crew of 281, most of them young cadets. On January 31, 1880, she left Bermuda, bound for England. The journey was supposed to be a standard crossing. But weeks passed. Then months. Nothing. The Atalanta never arrived. Concern grew into a full-blown crisis, and the British Admiralty launched one of the biggest sea searches of the 19th century. For months, they crisscrossed the Atlantic. They interviewed crews from over 200 other ships. Some reported seeing debris, but nothing could be tied to the Atalanta. No wreckage of the ship, nor any trace of its 281 crew members, was ever found. The disappearance of a large naval vessel without a trace sparked a public outcry in Britain. The Admiralty had no answers. Was it a sudden, violent storm? The North Atlantic in winter is brutal, and a squall could have easily capsized a sailing vessel. This remains the most likely scientific explanation. But other, more troubling theories emerged. This was a training ship, crewed by inexperienced sailors. Could their lack of skill in a storm have doomed the ship? Adding to the mystery was the fate of the Atalanta's sister ship, HMS Eurydice. Just 2 years earlier, the Eurydice also sank suddenly off the coast of England, killing over 300 people, many of them also young trainees. Some started to whisper that the ships themselves were cursed. With no facts, folklore took over. The Atalanta became a ghost ship, a vessel claimed by the unknown forces of the sea. Its total disappearance fit perfectly into the emerging narrative of the Bermuda Triangle as a place where ships just stop existing. Today, the most accepted explanation is that the HMS Atalanta was simply the victim of a massive storm. In an age without modern weather forecasting or radios, a sailing ship was completely at the mercy of the elements. A rogue wave or a powerful squall could have sent it to the bottom in minutes, leaving only an enduring and unsettling silence. Section 5. SS Cotopaxi, the wreck found. For almost 100 years, the SS Cotopaxi was a poster child for the Bermuda Triangle. A cargo ship that radioed for help and then vanished. It was so famous it even showed up in the middle of the Gobi Desert in the movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. For decades, its disappearance was held up as proof of the Triangle's power. But this is one mystery that has actually been solved. On November 29, 1925, the SS Cotopaxi left Charleston, South Carolina, heading for Havana, Cuba. On board were 32 crewmen and a cargo of coal. 2 days later, on December 1, the ship sent out a distress signal. The message was clear. They were caught in a bad tropical storm, taking on water, and listing badly. Then, just like so many others, the Cotopaxi went silent. For decades, that's where the story ended. The distress call only added to the legend, a final cry before being swallowed by the mystery. That is, until marine biologist and underwater explorer Michael Barnett got on the case. For years, an unidentified shipwreck off the coast of St. Augustine, Florida, known to locals as the Bear Wreck, had puzzled divers. Barnett became obsessed with identifying it. He spent years digging through old insurance records, newspaper archives, and ship blueprints. He found a crucial clue. The distress signals from the Cotopaxi had been picked up in Jacksonville, Florida, putting the ship right in the area of the Bear Wreck on the day it disappeared. He then dived the wreck, taking precise measurements. When he compared them to the original blueprints of the SS Cotopaxi, it was a perfect match. In 2020, almost 95 years after it vanished, the wreck was officially identified as the long-lost SS Cotopaxi. Finding the wreck was huge. It didn't just solve the where, it helped solve the how. The Cotopaxi wasn't in great shape when it left port. Researchers discovered its wooden hatch covers were in poor repair. When the ship sailed into a violent storm, waves would have easily washed over the deck, pouring water into the cargo holds. The coal would have become a heavy, unstable slurry, causing the ship to founder and sink. The story of the SS Cotopaxi is a powerful reality check for the Bermuda Triangle legend. It shows that behind the paranormal tales often lies a more mundane, but no less tragic, truth of mechanical failure and the overwhelming power of nature. The ship didn't vanish into another dimension. It sank in a storm, right where you'd expect to find it. The mystery wasn't that it disappeared, but that it took us almost a century to find it. So, what are we left with? From a squadron of bombers that flew into nowhere to a colossal ship that just ceased to be, these stories stick with us. We've heard the whispers of time warps and otherworldly portals, theories born from our need to explain the inexplicable. But science offers a different, though no less terrifying, view. The Bermuda Triangle isn't cursed, it's a region of profound natural danger. As the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration points out, there's no evidence that disappearances happen more frequently here than in any other heavily traveled part of the ocean. The region is known for rogue waves, an unpredictable magnetic field, and some of the most violent, rapidly changing weather on the planet. The real mystery may just be a perfect storm of environmental hazards, the technological limits of the time, and tragic human error. The discovery of the SS Cotopaxi reminds us that some of these mysteries can be solved. The answers are often just waiting at the bottom of the ocean. Yet for cases like Flight 19 and the USS Cyclops, where no trace has ever been found, the void of information remains. And in that void, the legend of the Bermuda Triangle lives on. It persists not because we can't find the answers, but maybe because a small part of us doesn't want to. We're drawn to the idea that there are still corners of our world that defy easy explanation. The real power of the Bermuda Triangle lies in the questions it leaves behind. What do you think is the most plausible explanation for these disappearances? Was it truly just bad weather and human error, or do you believe something more mysterious is at play? Let us know your theory in the comments below. And if you're captivated by the world's greatest unsolved mysteries, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another journey into the unknown.